What's up, man?
How's it going?
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Should have Gary with us here in a minute.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, I just got back from baseball like maybe 20 minutes ago or something. So
nice.
came in here, set all my saws up, got chains set up to talk about here, and yeah,
Nice.
I got a light too, but I don't want to like kill the battery.
Well, I actually remembered to record this, so
All right, sweet. Oh yeah, don't forget to record this.
yeah, so we can get it put onto YouTube and Facebook and all
Yeah,
that good stuff.
sweet.
So,
Dude.
I'm gonna pull up our list of questions. Hopefully, Gary joins us pretty soon.
Yeah,
I'm gonna send out another invite to him.
I'm sure he'll be by soon enough. And since I don't know anything about porting, I sure hope he's here.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna check my messages, see if he said anything.
All right, sweet. I'll do a little quick video. There's a couple people joined already. I'm going to do a little quick video tour of my shed / shop. Well, for one,
Sounds great.
we have a pile of dead oak limbs here from like a year and a half ago when the chipper wasn't working. They're piled on a trailer. So yeah, that's fun. Got lots of empty bottles of bar and chain oil. That's where I mix my fuel. I mix 5 gallons at a time, at 32 to 1. And I always
Nice.
keep like, I got Lucas this time, and I always keep some Staybill, even though it's ethanol free. Gas doesn't really break down the same way.
Never hurts.
Yeah, lots of chains. 28063. Yeah, lots of chains. And
What's
then
up, Mr. Buxton?
lots more.
Not much.
Lots of rope too.
Nice.
All
Figured it
right,
out at work.
we got these.
Oh, nice. You got your sweater on.
Same as the Tacoma grinders.
You got your grinders.
Yep. Safety first. See how I keep the side cover on there?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. You know. Anyway, how's it going, Gary?
All right, man.
Nice. Well, should we start in on our list of questions?
Yeah. Do you have the list in front of you? Because mine's on my phone, and I think that
Yeah, I have I'm on my iPad, so I've got it on my phone.
Sweet. What's
Let me
up?
Let me pull up the list.
Kev Haggard.
Kev's on here. All right. 4 Industries. Nice. So we got Gary's got a 4 Industries saw sitting in his shop right now.
Oh yeah.
I do?
Yeah. That's that 500i.
Oh.
That should be up pretty soon too.
Sweet.
All right. So
Got
here's
that down 261 sitting on your shelf somewhere, Gary.
not
I have,
yet.
What's that?
but I have a couple of them.
Yeah. I sent one to you. It's it'll be the one with the anti-vibe broke and it's like looked like it got thrown out of a tree because it did.
I think Lucas has that one.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's still at my shop. It's got to go to the builder first, and he's gonna tear that whole thing down.
That thing's tired, right?
Yeah, it needs a little bit of work. So
Yeah. That was a funny story. Actually, Nathan's tree service, he just joined. That was a funny story on that saw. I'll be real quick. He had a contract climber working for him, no names mentioned, and the guy just like refused to get a rear handle saw on the tree. And so Nate went out and got this 261. It's like light, disfigured. Sent it up to him, and the guy's like, it's so heavy, I can't hold it. He just dropped it out of the tree.
You're kidding.
No, that's exactly what happened. So you see the result of it. That's why you have it.
Well, the cool thing is that that's going to get completely broken down all the way to the crank. We're going to split the case. We're going to have that thing all cleaned up and colored, customized.
Oh, I'm excited.
It's going to be badass.
Yeah, dude.
All right, so here's our first question that we have. The first topic is converting round file to square file.
Oh,
How do you get the angles right? And do you use a brand new chain or do you use a used chain?
well, I have one on my Vice here. Let me see if I can like show that somehow. I use a used chain. You don't have to, but if you're using here, let me show you. If you're using a chain that's round file, especially a smaller chain, like so this is on a 201, the file will have a little trouble fitting in between the raker and the cutter at the right angle.
Yeah.
So this one's a little bit used. And the real key to do it, see if I can do it one-handed here. The key is, for one, you see this is a triangle file.
Yep.
Lay one side of the triangle flat against the chain, and then you're going to turn it. You're looking for like 45 and 45. So, I mean, 45 that way and 45 back. But basically, here, let's see if we can, how good this camera is. On this triangle, the corners are just a little bit rounded. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
You want all flat up against the top plate. And it's really hard to do this one-handed. I'm really sorry, guys. I practiced this, actually. And where it's flat should sit right in that cutter. And if you have all that right, everything else will work out. And you're going to grind like that. And as you work that, the angles are going to actually turn out exactly the way that you want them to. But the key is to don't look at the angle of the top plate if you came from round file, because your round file angles are going to be like 30 degrees or thereabout. Maybe some guys do 25. And your square file angles are going to look a whole lot more like this, which you can see is, I don't know if you can tell, but that's almost 20 degrees. It might even be 15.
Yeah.
Because square file just cuts a whole lot differently. So anyway, I don't know if that helps anybody or not. I can grind one while we talk here, and then I'll show it to you again. So we can probably move on to another question. But the way basically, like you said, the way that you get the angles correct is you make sure that you're holding your file correctly. So your file should be at 45 and 45.
Yeah.
And after that,
one thing that I noticed there is that you're sharpening it backwards.
Yes, exactly. So now I know like Buck and Billy Ray did a video where he like kind of came in the other way. But that is kind of unorthodox. When you're sharpening a square file, it's a whole lot easier to make sure that you're hitting right in that corner like that. Because that's what you need, is you need that flat to sit right in that corner. And that's going to help create, let me get my echo up here. That's going to help create that little beak there. You can see that there's a little beak.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want. The square cut, like the chain cuts wood differently. It severs the fibers differently than a round file. So getting the gullet is not as important. Now every like 3 or 4 sharpens, I will like run out the gullet with a smaller file.
Yeah.
But this will cut like ridiculous.
So I've heard some guys say that they like to round file the gullet first, then go back and hit the top edge with that file.
So that's every so many sharpens, like maybe every 3 sharpens or so, you're gonna need to do that.
Sure.
But so I do have a chain over here that I did that with. This is a 3-foot chain, and you can see like I went through and got the gullet first, and then square filed the cutter.
Yeah.
That's just helpful for chip flow, but that gullet is not doing anything on a square file. It's all top plate and that little beak that are severing the fibers. And because you clean out the inside of the chain so much, like if you can picture how this is going, this is like really cleaning out that underneath of the cutter, and it just creates like a better funnel for the chips.
Sure.
So they say a square file chain will actually cut 23% faster, and it's not really that hard to do. It's just the first couple of times you do it, it's going to take you a while to get it right. That's all.
Now, Trinity Tree Arbor Care wants to know, does it stay sharp for as long as if it was done normally?
It stays sharp longer. However, what I've noticed is that square is a little more susceptible to dirt, to getting dull from dirt. So if the wood's a little bit tricky, you're going to dull it a little quicker. But I'm typically using my saws in the tree other than my 395. And yeah, I find that I can probably go longer in between sharpens actually.
All right. Well, that helps, I guess, with that. Like you said, you're in the tree with clean wood.
Yeah. So I don't know if maybe I can prop this so that I can still be on, and I'm going to work on this one.
Well, the next question is going to be for Gary.
Oh.
Performance tuning. It's kind of a multi-part question. So they want to know about airflow, like bark boxes, back pressure, how much or how little a saw needs. And then the second part would be the durability between tuned and, ported versus stock saws.
Well, there's a bunch going on right now with the muffler arguments everywhere. A saw technically needs none. Don't need any back pressure. It'll start idling funny when you get above like 200% of the port width. But other than that, it'll keep making power all the way up to 200% in a ported saw. And
Really?
as a general rule, the more you got going out, the more you want to try to get going in, because that's what's going to build power. So if you're running a big exhaust port, you're going to want more intake, either by modification or by max flow. Or the more you can get in, the better, and the more you can get out, the better. So it kind of all goes with the blowdown too. It kind of all corresponds with the blowdown. But generally, in a ported saw, you can run up to like 200% of the size of your exhaust port before you're going to see idling issues. So I see everybody's arguing about that right now, so you might get a little blowback about that, but I've actually tested it, and you don't lose any power all the way up to around 200%, and then it starts idling a little funny. So
Yeah. So I know that one thing that you and I have talked about a lot in the past is heat, and your view on how heat kills saws.
well, yeah, definitely. The stock mufflers definitely build heat, so if you want your saw to last, putting a port on or a side port or a cover, it's just going to benefit your saw. Other than you have the side effect of noise, so I guess some guys don't like that, but
Sure.
overall, it's mainly going to benefit you. It's going to make more power. It's going to have more throttle response. It's going to keep the heat out. There's really no bad that comes from it.
This is what Gary did with some side ports.
Here's a question that we had the other day, was whether or not having a muffler cover like the bark box is much different than just drilling holes straight in your muffler.
I don't like holes drilled straight in the muffler. When saws come in here and holes are drilled straight through the muffler, I typically weld them up. I don't like how they look, and I don't like how if you're cutting and you're ramming into the wood, you can get all that debris in them holes.
Yeah.
And then that can get in your cylinder. At least with the bark box, or I try to put, typically if people got the screens pulled, I won't put screens on them, but I like putting screens on them just to keep the debris out more so than keeping the sparks from coming out. Because you don't want debris getting in your muffler, because eventually it's going to inhale it and it's going to kill the saw. So I would not recommend drilling holes in the front of the saw.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was your answer to that question, but it's always good to cover that.
Doesn't look as cool either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look as clean and good either. But yeah, it could get stuff in it. Typically, at least have some type of deflector, so you at least make a flying attempt at keeping stuff out of your muffler.
Yeah. So here's a question just popped up from 4 Industries about modifying the exhaust on a 200T. I've started using the 200T pipe from West Coast Saw, and I know you've piped them before too. What's your viewpoint on piping versus just a standard port?
Well, the pipe's mainly just for looks. How I do them is I weld a pipe to a plate, and I bolt the plate on the side of the muffler with a screw, either to the factory screen screw, or on some of them I make a whole new hole, and then I actually put either a nut sert or a nut on the inside of the muffler. And actually the pipes I put on are basically just a deflector. I drill a hole in the, actually I got one right here.
Nice.
It actually still needs painted, but this is what I do. As you can see, it's bolted on, and that pipe's actually just welded to that plate. And I don't know if there's enough light you can see down in it, but it's just a hole drilled in the muffler.
Yeah.
But the pipe's bolted over.
Yeah. Now what we have to do is we have to get that on the dyno to figure out what the just the muffler modification will do. So
Yeah, that saw's ported, so you can't do that with that one. That's going to have a little more
exactly.
than just a muffler modification.
We're gonna have to take one of those over to Joe just on a stock and see how that works.
I'd assume it gets something. They typically do.
You got to expect it's going to be 5 to 10%.
Yeah, typically from a timing bump and a muffler mod. The 200Ts, though, you don't want to bump your timing. I think they lose when you bump the timing on them. The 201s definitely benefit from a timing bump.
Yeah.
It all depends on how hot your factory coil is. Like a lot of the Echoes don't benefit, 620s really don't benefit, 501s really don't benefit, but then you get in the 590s and they benefit. So when you're bumping your timing, you kind of got to listen to the saw. There's actually a good video on my page here from a few weeks ago of when I went too far. They almost start sounding like they got a popcorn sound or almost like a rev limited sound. That's how you know you're too far with your timing. You don't want to go that far because it can actually hurt your bearings and a whole bunch of bad stuff can happen. So be a little careful when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cast and tree service, we definitely see a big difference when we port the 200Ts.
Somebody said, "Can they see my 550?" No, you can't. Ever since I got this Echo, the 550 saw very little play time. This is way lighter, like a lot, like at least a few pounds lighter. I think dry weight was like 1.5 pounds from the factory is what they say, but it's significantly lighter. It's lighter than that. So actually, I sold my 550 to somebody who would care for it more than I would because it was just sitting on my shelf with me.
Yeah, you hadn't heard that yet, Gary. I hadn't told you that.
And you got 261, and then I got the 501. I got this John Cutter, and like I'm like really rich in 50cc saws, like, and it wasn't a big deal to me to let it go to somebody who had been pretty interested in it.
That 501's a hell of a saw.
It really is. I mean, we'll talk more about it later, I'm sure, but yeah, it freaking rips.
Yeah, that thing. I think that saw right there has as much or more gain on any saw that Gary has done.
Oh, and the more, I mean, it might have already been kind of broken. I'm not really sure how much you guys ran it, but it seems like it's getting more powerful. And I got like a really aggressive square grind on it, and it just like shreds anything in front of it. Ash tree is what I've cut with it most.
Nice. Now, on a square grind, do you see any difference? I know some people say that like a 35-degree file on a round file on an ash tree, they have problems with chattering.
No chatter. I found that square is very smooth. So I did file that one. This is a round file, and that's 30 degrees. And then like, so there's the round, here's the square. I don't know if you can see the difference in the top plate. How it's like, that's more like 20 degrees. And like I said, if I just get the file angle right, everything else works out. You can see the little beak there.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So Gary,
smoother. It's way smoother.
Gary, durability and longevity on a ported saw versus a stock saw.
It should be exactly the same or a little better because it's running cooler.
Yeah.
I've never tested the theory, but I've had lots of guys say that they last longer. So I can't prove that. I have nothing to back it up other than hearsay from customers. But I've never heard of one taking a durability hit. Maybe the 372X Torques, because they got a little heavier piston, they might take a little hit. But and most of your modern saws, they're not going to take a durability hit from porting.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. What I normally tell people is think about how you use a stock saw versus how you use a ported saw. And if you decide that you're going to push that ported saw harder because you think it's got a lot more in it, maybe that's where you could lose some longevity issues.
Lots of ported saws. The reason they're going to die is people running just screaming with dull chains. That'll kill them fast.
Yeah.
People ordering a ported saw and not knowing how to tune it and not taking it someplace to get tuned. If you're, I think I'm about 500 feet up, and if you are more than a few hundred feet in either way, you should really be tuning it or taking it to be tuned, because I can't guarantee that saw is tuned when it gets to you.
Yeah.
What about running pissy fuel?
Oh yeah, that'll definitely kill it. You should at least be running premium. If you run ethanol, make sure you're going through it quicker, because you don't want that sitting in your carbs. But
Yeah.
other than that, make sure you're running. The best is the 91 non-ethanol is the best stuff you can find for them. But everybody don't have access to that, so.
Yeah, I run all good fuel, but I just thought I'd ask, because that's what I always tell guys and that's what I've noticed over time is I've run saws at tree services where they buy us nothing but, the most cheapest basic crap fuel with the cheapest two-stroke. And
Well, you'll see it in lots of the firewood guys, because they'll let their fuel sit for months on end, and then they'll dump it in the saws and they'll burn their saws up right away. You can always tell when it's a fuel issue, because if you over rev a saw, it's going to scar in your exhaust side. When you have a fuel issue, it's going to scar all the way around to the intake side, and right away it's obvious when you rip them apart. But everybody likes to argue about it too. I had good fuel in it. Well, how old was it? Well, it's 6 months old. Well, it probably wasn't good fuel then. You should always fresh good fuel.
Yeah, another alternative is if they can't find non-ethanol, you can always go to an airport or go to a racetrack and pick up 100 AV gas.
Most of the saws nowadays are safe running ethanol. They got the diaphragms and stuff in the carb for ethanol. So I wouldn't so much worry about the ethanol as much as keeping it fresh and running, a good octane level.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. We did have a question come up about auto tune. Should we jump to that topic while we've got it here?
yeah,
Okay. So M-tronic carburetors, how do they work, and is an M-tronic delete worth it? Third part of that question is how do they work with porting, and how do they jive together?
I'd never delete it. I love them, and I think they're the best thing. If you're sending a saw to get ported, it's awesome to send an auto tune. It'll automatic after I make a couple cuts with it, and you get it back and make a couple cuts with it. It's going to automatically adjust it to run optimal.
Yeah.
You're not even going to be able to tune a saw how it's going to adjust it. I absolutely love M-tronic and auto tune. I know people argue that with me, but I think they're great.
I have auto tune saws with the exception of my 395, I guess the 2511, and the Echo. But so actually, that's not that many auto tune saws. My 462 is auto tune, my 201 is auto tune, and my 550 XP that I had was auto tune. They rip.
So here's another
question that's on there right now. We can't guarantee a tune for anything other than the altitude we are. You'd have to retune that.
Yeah, what one thing that I recommend when I'm talking to people about elevation differences, atmospheric condition differences, the best thing you can do is buy yourself a tack, right? And if Gary and I tack out a saw once we've got it ported, and we know that it's safe at, say, 14,000 RPMs, right? We can send that saw to you and say, hey, 14,000 RPMs, your saw is going to be good. Then you can tack it out, go through a tuning process, whether it's a training video or whether you're talking to myself or Gary on the phone, and we can walk you how to tune that saw with that tack.
That just say 4,500 feet? That's up there. Where are you at?
I think he's out in Wyoming.
You were running a higher test fuel, run the saw too hot. No, it will run it cooler, I believe. Gary,
That's correct.
But the two-stroke mix is actually like a lot of cool, right there. Cool.
You're breaking up, man.
I am.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
All right. I'll shut up then. Somebody else.
All right. So that's a good question on the fuel mixture. The gas is what cools the saw, not the oil. So a lot of people think that by putting more oil in their gas, it's going to run cooler. Well, it's not. The oil is there for lubrication. The gas is there for cooling. However, you run the risk of, especially on a ported saw, not having enough oil mixture for your bearings and for the lower end of the saw. You're putting a lot of torque and a lot of wear and tear on those bearings.
He said I was covering the mic hole. I probably was.
Yeah, you probably were. Wouldn't you agree with that, Gary?
Yeah, more. I always recommend 32 or 40 to 1 in ported saws, just because the lubrication properties.
Cast and Tree Service wants to know, are those new MS200T in the back?
That is one of Lucas's new MS200Ts. Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's our custom saw that we build.
Send it to me.
Yeah, send it to you. If you're interested, Cast and Tree, send me a DM and we can talk about the ones that we build. So we can talk about that later. I'll follow up with you. All right, sharpeners and grinders. What is the best sharpener for a quick touch-up, and what's the best full-blown job back in the shop sharpener?
It's going to be the same sharpener, in my opinion. It's going to be the high-end Tecumseh or Oregon grinder. And you guys have Tecumsehs for like way better prices than you'll ever find an Oregon grinder. But I can show you on my Oregon grinder. See here, look. It says Oregon, and then where does it say it? It says Tecumseh on here too. So maybe I'll keep my
manufactured by Tecumseh or however you say it.
Oh yeah, here it is, right here.
Yep.
Tecumseh. So, and that's who makes it. So this is identical to the Jolly Roger. Is that what the Jolly whatever?
It's the Super Jolly.
The Super Jolly. And so I can set this for the gauge of whatever chain I plan to sharpen. So if I'm doing 063 or 058, 050. It's hydraulic assist, which means that every time I pull this down, it clamps. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. See how it's clamping the chain? Which is way better. There's also another thing I've noticed is like, so I set my down angles and I can set my depth for how deep I'm going to go. All that stuff is way more solid on this than it is on this dinky thing. But although this is awesome for the price, there's a lot of flex in this. I don't know if you can see that I'm pulling down on it, but there's a lot of flex to this. So you can tend to get your angles off, and then your clamp is lame on this. So this is the best, the Super Jolly. And it is great for touching up, or if you hit rocks or whatever you hit. It's pretty much how you set it. This is what, see this right here? This is going to set how deep you're going to go on each chain.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, it's all up to you.
So now here's a question for those guys that don't have a grinder, but they're in the field and they need a quick touch up on their chain. I've always been a guy, when I'm personally cutting, that I like the Steel 2-in-1 sharpener. I feel like that's just an easy route to go because it gives you your angles. It's set up on a jig, so you can't really get it wrong. And I found that that's a great way to just in the field, quick and dirty, get it done. Some other guys like hand filing and they like their angles, but for me, especially if I'm teaching somebody or they're a greenhorn, I go right to that Steel 2-in-1 file.
Yeah, I haven't honestly ever used the Steel 2-in-1 file, but what I have done is known a lot of guys who swear by it. So
yeah. BZ Arbor Care. I don't know the price right off the top of my head, but I will follow up with you when we're done with this.
For the Super Jolly?
Yeah.
Like, you can't quote me because I don't sell them, but it's like $379 or something right in that.
Yeah, I think it's $385, but I'm not positive.
Just south of 400 plus tax and shipping or whatever you guys do.
Oh no, I'm free shipping and no taxes, man.
I
I'm
figured
one of
as
those.
I
I'm one
figured.
of those good guys.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, let's see what the next question is we got on our list. We've been over tuning. We've been over Mtronics. All right, here's a question that Zach and I already talked about a little bit. If we had to pick 3 saws for a contract climber without only climbing and rigging gear, what would they be? Now, I want to know what's the stock pick and what's the ported pick.
The stock or the ported pick? All right. So I'll show you what I got here. If you could only pick 3, so I have more than 3, but I like first of all I like a certain gap in CCs. So it's going to be roughly like 15 to 20 CCs. So if you could only pick 3 saws, I think it's going to be a 201, which is what this is, or a 200 if you can find one. I think we know a guy who sells 200s, but that's 35 cc's. You could maybe go to like 193 or 194 or something that kind of falls in the middle of like a small pruning saw. But you need something to be able to tackle removals and pull like a 14 or a 16-inch bar. Then I'd like something in the 50 cc range, which I have a ported Echo 501 here. I hate to say it, these, from what I understand, these are a little sluggy stock. Their Echo is fairly restricted from the factory, but if money is an issue, then Echo is the way to go because you're going to be able to get this stock with south of $400, right? What are they, like 375 or something in that?
Yeah, I think they're right at 400.
Yeah, so I mean that's a steal. If I definitely would not 100% not get a 261. You will be very, very, very disappointed in a stock 261. They are dogs. The 550 XP Mark II is a great saw. It's going to run you about 600, 650, depending on what bar options you get with it. This ported, if money is not an issue, this is the way to go for the 50cc class. I had a 550 XP Mark II. Lucas did not make me use this saw. 100% did not. I had the option to send this back and keep playing with my 550 XP Mark II, or keep this. And so my 550 XP is gone to a good home. I'm running this. It's mainly a weight thing. This is just as powerful, if not more so, than the Mark II. I did race them together. I didn't run the same chains. And then, so it wasn't a fair race, but that won. That did. And then so we got 35cc class, 50cc class, and then the third saw I would recommend is something in the 70cc class. If you're a contract climber, then you're thinking about weight. So this is the lightest 70cc class saw you're going to find. You can't argue that. The 572, I see that BZ Arbor here. 572 is perfect. This is lighter. That's a bona fide fact. The 572 versus this stock, yes, the 572 will outcut it by a little bit, but it's not anything you're ever going to notice in the tree. You throw a Sumara bar on this, I got a 28-inch bar on that. It's under 20 pounds. It freaking screams. So, yeah. Anyway, if that answers your question, 35cc, 50cc, and your 70cc saw.
Sure.
You want to
So
start getting imported stuff, then, I mean, maybe you can find like a John Cutter or something in the 60cc class that you can port out, get it screaming, and replace the 462 with. But that's the same weight as a 362, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did I answer the question, or did I get off track too much?
No, I think you hit it right on the nail right on the head there. I mean, your classes of saws, I think, is right where somebody wants that answer. And from my standpoint, if you really needed a big saw that 72cc with a 32-inch bar on it will run fine.
It'll pull us
too. Yeah, and it'll cut a big tree. You know, you can cut 40-some inches like that without issue.
Yeah, this pulls a 28, no problem. And look, this is stock. My 462 is 100% stock and no spark arrestor, but I don't really think that makes much of a difference.
So here's a question: How many saws do you take with you to the work site?
All of them.
Yeah,
I take all of them. And because, like, okay, what happens if somebody got funny with the clothesline and hung it 20 feet up, and I hit metal with this? I've got options, you know. The 462 is a great saw. I used to run it. It used to be my biggest saw, and I did everything with it, flushing stumps, all that. I mean, I found that maintenance became a little bit of an issue to keep up with because I'd flush a stump on Monday, and then, you know, come Wednesday, it doesn't want to cut anymore. I try to do my saws every week. So, you know, I have a 395. That's pretty much taking over stump duty. That's a 37-inch Sumara bar on there. So what do I have here? 4, 5, 6 saws. That's what I roll around with. Every saw has its purpose. You know, from pruning to in-tree big wood. This has actually been getting a lot of use. You guys don't know about the John Cutter. This is save that money right here. This is Gary built this one. This thing freaking screams, but you can get these for $200. I use it for whatever. Cutting by the chipper. I don't do too much chipping, but cutting by the chipper, you know, little felling stuff, cutting dirty wood up on the ground. It's a great little saw.
Yeah. Like we talked about, that's your greenhorn ground guy. You know, that's your newbie that you don't want to put your $700 saw into their hands.
No, they're not touching these saws. And actually, I don't know if the one guy's tuned into this or not, but a guy I work with quite a lot, he's a good friend of mine. Yesterday, we did a job in Maryland. He's from my area in Pennsylvania, so an hour and a half drive, he left the key for his saw box on his truck at home. And didn't have a saw. And I tend to, if you guys watch my videos, I rig like really big. So you need a saw on the ground. And I was like, hey, man, use John Cutter, dude. Like, I mean, and he did. He used it all day. He was actually really – everybody I've given this saw to has said the exact same thing. They're all skeptical at first. What the hell's a John Cutter is pretty much what I get. But they all come back and say, you know what, it was a fun little saw to run. The thing really, really cuts. It's not heavy. That's a 20-inch bar. It pulls it no problem. It's a great ground saw, 100%. And you're going to spend like $400 on a Rancher, like a 455 Husky Rancher. You're going to spend probably the same on a Farm Boss. I don't know what Farm Bosses cost, but I mean, this thing is right there with them all, and it's $200 stock. Can you sell these with just like a ported muffler? And I don't know if Gary could answer this, but maybe do they benefit from a timing advance? Did you do a timing advance on these?
I think that one's got one. I've messed with them on some of them, and some of them haven't. I believe that one's advanced, yes.
It really, really cuts. You got to keep the RPMs up. It cuts so fast that it makes you want to just push it even harder than you're already pushing it. And then what's that?
I've been through a couple of recipes on them. Actually, the one I'm doing now is one that's been tweaked from that one you have. It's actually a more torquier recipe. I've been running in them now. It ain't so – that one was kind of rev happy but kind of lacked on the bottom end. The new recipe is more of a blend. It's got a little more bottom end to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a fun saw, and if you know that you got to keep the RPMs up on it, and listen, for anybody who's wondering, like when I say you got to keep the RPMs up, like it's not like anything that's really hard to do. The thing screams. I'm talking about when it's cutting so fast, and you're like, yeah, man, you like really dog in, and it does struggle a little bit, but like, heck, dude, it's a John Cutter, man. Like it's fully ported. It's less money than any saw in its class. So, I mean. It's a great.
I think with that 20-inch Sumara bar on it, it's less than $700.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's definitely like gotten a lot of use since I've had it.
Yeah, they're great. They're great little saws. And for anybody that is wondering what that actually is it's a Zenoa clone. So it's a Zenoa 5800, G5800
I don't even
that
know
Farmer
if I know
Tech
it.
now produces.
Put this up in the light. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Put a square grind on this thing yet, but I really want
There you
to.
go.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it out. So this is still the new chain, and like I'll show you what I meant by earlier, just to touch back on it. Look what happens when I put this. See, this is a bigger 3/8 chain, but look how close I am to the rakers there, at the right angle.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to take a
Yeah.
little bit. You got to take a little bit off of it. You know. I'm gonna.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is a good segue point that somebody wanted to know the differences between the saw brands. And this is a highly controversial question.
Yeah, we'll be here for 3 hours talking about that, dude.
We could talk forever on these questions, especially this one. But they want to know, Steel versus Husqvarna versus Echo versus Makita versus other brands. My standpoint is, if you're a professional, put a professional saw in that professional's hands, they will use it professionally.
Yeah.
And there's little nuances and there's little differences between those saw brands, but they're all good. At the end of the day, if it's a professional saw, it's a professional saw. People seem to think that, the steel saws may have more torque, or the Husqvarna saws may have more RPMs, or they like the weight and the feel of the anti-vibration system on the Husqvarnas. I don't use the saw professionally, so I can't answer which one is better than the other, because I don't think that there's an honest answer.
Steel, Husqvarna, and Echo are all pretty much the same as far as the feel in your hands goes. They're all very well built saws. On-off switch, which is something that I think about sometimes. They're all like pretty quality. They start up. They all have decomp valves as needed. Some of them have annoying things about the fuel caps, like Steel. It's kind of stupid, but yeah. I mean, if you're talking about those three brands, I don't really think there's too much of a difference at all.
Yeah.
Steel and Husqvarna are the most popular ones. They've spent the most money on marketing, so there's that.
Yep. We've proven, Gary and I, especially Gary, has proven that the Echo saws, when ported, see just ridiculous gains. I mean,
Well, they're built for longevity mainly, so there's a lot of places to gain.
yeah. So speak about that, Gary, on what being built for longevity actually means.
Well, lots of them run, well, I guess the newer ones run a little hotter timing, but they run just tons of piston squish. So they don't run real high compression from the factory. But it's really easily changed. They run lower exhaust ports, higher intakes. They're just they're designed not to be as hot a saw as the other brands. Mainly, I think Echo does it so they last a little longer out of the box.
Yeah.
So that's how they're getting away with their long warranties, is they're just building not quite as hot a saw as the other brands.
Sure. And another thing to talk about there is when Gary's talking about squish, he's talking about the difference between, or the distance between the top of the piston and the bottom of the squish band, or the top edge of that cylinder. So when the piston is at top dead center, you've got the squish reading, which is that distance. And your echoes may come from the factory at 40 thousandths or higher. And when Gary ports a saw, he's trying to get somewhere around that point, 20 to 25 thousandth range.
They gain their echoes, get their compression a different way. They run a low exhaust port, which makes torque and not RPM. So they're kind of torquey from the factory. But then running such a such a low exhaust port, they got to run a big squish or they'd have insane compression. So they just design them a little different. They're timed a little different. Like his 501 now is timed more like a steel or a different brand. I cranked the RPMs up on them, and they seem to love it. So
nice.
Dude, that thing screams. I brought it up in the tree yesterday. I hadn't run it for like 2 or 3 weeks just because that's just how it was working out. You know, if I needed a bigger saw, I needed like a really big saw. It kind of sucks sometimes, but I used it yesterday and I was like, holy crap. Like, dude, I'm just silver maple. It cuts fast, but dude, that thing just, and the guys,
when I had that thing, I was cutting firewood with it, and I had it. I wouldn't recommend this because it's really walking on the edge. I had that thing tuned at like 15.5.
Dude,
screaming.
Where it is at right now, it's insane. Like I love that saw.
I want to turn it up to 15.5. You might fry it, but I wanted to see what it takes, so I had it cranked, and it was ridiculous.
So here's a good addition to the conversation about RPMs. Now, if somebody's running a saw with high RPMs, how does that compare to if they drop it a little bit and have a little bit more torque? What's the relationship between torque and RPM on a ported saw?
Well, tuned fat, they're going to have more torque. You don't want to tune them screaming if you're going for torque. I always tune them just on a little bit on the fat side if you want the torque. You're going to lose torque when you lean them out. You're going to gain RPM but lose torque. So a lot of it has to do with how you tune it and then also how the cylinder's timed. You can run in a lower exhaust port and a little more compression is going to gain you torque. Where running a higher exhaust port is going to gain you RPM. So it's all how we set them up, how we tune them. If you're running a little higher exhaust port, you can get more torque out of them by tuning them a little fat when you tune them. It's kind of a mixture of the whole, kind of a mixture of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that I personally like a more torquey saw than I like a high RPM saw. But I'm cutting firewood. So I'm cutting big pieces all the time, and I don't want that saw to bog down. So I'm not really
I think they perform the best tuned a little fat because they're a little more torquey. I don't lean my personal saws out a lot other than that echo I was just talking about because I just wanted to see what it do. All my personal saws are usually tuned just a little bit on the fat side.
Very good. Thanks for answering that, Gary. All right, we had a question about battery-operated saws. Now,
we don't talk about them.
Yeah, I know.
Let me put
it's gonna be really quick.
Emoticon in the comments here real quick.
Will battery saws ever be the norm?
No.
And will a T540 XPI be as powerful as a 201T?
No. That's end of story. Battery saws are cool. I wouldn't mind getting one just to play with, but you can't, other than converting them to quarter pitch, like you can't really do anything to them. Like what do you do? Put a ported battery in them? Like you can't do anything to them. It's cool. Yeah, you can press a button, it's just ready to cut. You don't have to pull start a saw when you're out on like a funny limb. I don't really care. Like I don't have a problem with pull starting my saw. Maybe I will someday, but now I don't. And that's just where it's going to be at. They're heavy, dude. Like if you guys have battery saws, like you can't tell me that your battery saw with like 2 huge batteries or the really, really big Husqvarna battery that lasts more than like an hour is lighter than my 2511. It's not. It's like I don't even understand the pull start. That's like the biggest thing. Pull start and the noise, but like we all wear ear protection anyway, so like what does it even matter?
I think they're great for like around the yard or camping but if you're into performance, yeah.
I mean, sorry if you love battery saws, but it's just not gonna be my thing, dude. Like
I had one I took camping. It was great for that, but
yeah.
It's nice by the tipper to just pick up, press a button, make a little quick cut, but it's you know.
I think it's great for homeowners that don't want to keep mixed gas sitting around. Don't, they need to go cut off a tree branch every once in a while. Something falls out of the tree. But I just don't see it in the professional industry ever being the actual norm, especially when you get to the logging aspect, or guys that aren't climbers. How big of a battery do you need to operate a 70 cc saw, or size wise, to run a 28-inch or a 32-inch bar? I mean, you're going to have two car batteries hanging off the back end of the thing.
You have a battery backpack. Look like a Ghostbuster.
Exactly. Here's a good question here. If you had to pick one 70cc saw to run for the rest of your lives, what would your choice be?
Who's going first on that one?
You go ahead, because I think you've got it in your hand.
Yeah, this is my favorite 70cc saw. I had I had a ported 046, and it would pull like a 36-inch bar, like better than a 660. It was ridiculous. It's heavy. I'm like not that big of a guy, so hold on, I'm plugging my phone in here. I'm like, if you guys don't know, I don't take pictures of my like height or anything. I'm like 5'8", dude. Like on a heavy side, I'm like 70. I don't need a heavy saw, so 462 all day. It's not really like that much of a noticeable power loss between that and a 461, in my opinion, and it is a very noticeable reduction in weight.
Sure. All right, Gary, what's your favorite 70cc saw?
To build power-wise, definitely a 461. It's the most badass 70cc saw after it's ported. But them 462s, like he's got, they're freaking amazing. They're just light and smooth, and I guess it depends what you're using it for. If you're going, you want the most badass saw you can buy in the 70cc class, get a 61. If you want a nice, comfortable, smooth-running saw that'll still scream, you're not going to lose with the 62. They're just a nice saw.
Yeah, I've got two aspects of that question. To me, is if I wanted a saw that I was going to have forever, that I didn't have to basically dick with, I'd want a 462, just because I don't have to worry about tuning the thing. It's light. It's a great saw. But if I was going for performance, definitely the 461, hands down. All right.
The Husky guys are wondering why no one picked a Husky.
Hey, if people would send me more Huskies, I might get on board. I don't see no Huskies. I see a bunch of 372s. You want me to like a 572? Send me one.
They're good. 572 is a good saw. I work with a guy that has one. I mean, I pick it up, and the first thing I think is like, golly, what is this, like a 90cc saw? It's so heavy, but...
I haven't done one yet. I haven't seen one. Nobody's sent me a 572, so send me a 572.
There you go, BZ Arbor Care. Send your 572 to Gary. He'll give you a screaming deal on it too, so he can get one in. And by screaming deal, I mean that the saw is going to be screaming once it's over and done.
This cons on the 572. Just wait. Yeah, for me, that's it.
Yeah.
Their Husqvarna makes a great saw. Their auto tune is like pretty awesome, and they're pretty powerful. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that love the 572. I'm just not personally the Husqvarna guy. I've always liked the way that steels run, and that's what I own on my personal saws right now or what I did own, I guess. But, if it were a 70cc saw, at this point, if you look at the 70cc market on new saws, I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think that you could throw a rock and hit any of the 570cc saws that are the main standpoints out there and get yourself a good saw.
No one ever talks about the 576 that Husky makes. That's a great saw too.
Yeah.
Super powerful.
That's a tank, though. I have had a couple of them.
Yeah, we've got a 572 and a 576 on the list. I just looked.
Yeah, they're saws, man. They are.
Yeah. And, the 7310 is a great saw as well. It's a little bit heavier.
What's that? The Dolmar? Echo.
That's the Echo.
The Echo.
Well, yeah, and you've got the 7910, which is a 80cc saw, which is another, the Makita is another great saw.
Yeah, dude. Dolmar, Makita. Makita owns them now, but yeah, they're good saws. They're just, I don't know.
Might have a problem getting parts and supply.
Yeah.
I thought I'm ordering a couple of them just because they're going away.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely true.
I had a 5105S, I think it was. It's like the new version of the old 5100. I had one for a while. It was a really nice saw. Just like, I don't know, it's just not quite a Steel or a Husky, in my opinion. Little annoying things about it.
All right, so this is the last question that I've got on my list, and we can probably chat up a couple other questions if they come in from the viewers too. But this is a question that somebody asked, and I also wanted to make sure we talked about it. Chains. What do the numbers mean, and what are the different types? Now, is steel chain better than Oregon? Does it stay sharper longer?
Oh, I mean, if you don't mind, I can start with that a little bit. So, I did see a video. It was probably the most controlled cut video I've ever seen. The guy, like, literally hung a weight off the hole in the end of a bar, and he cut with all the different brands out of the box. Then he ran them through dirt and cut with them again. And steel was the fastest cutting of all the chains. Steel is also double the price, almost, of any other chain. Oregon was second on that list. And I don't remember what was after that. So, but I don't know. The difference wasn't that much. And I can show you what I got here. Most of the guy who, I don't remember who asked that question. I'm not going to say his name, but I think he was asking from a homeowner perspective, but I might be wrong. Any saw that you buy is going to be this. It's going to come with this chain. You buy it at Home Depot or Husqvarna. And what this is there's a double raker on there. See, look, when I hold it straight, it looks like there's one raker. And then as it comes around the nose, if you can kind of picture how that is, see how the raker spreads out? It's a double raker there. And that is your safety chain, and that's designed to be low kickback, because that's the point as it goes around the bar and it bends like this, that's the point where the chain is changing direction and it's going to kick back at you. If you're a professional, these are okay, but you can't really bore cut with them at all. Like they really suck. So, pros, we bore cut. You know what? I'm missing something. Another thing to notice about this, if you look at the cutter profile, see how it's kind of rounded as it goes around the corner right there? It's kind of rounded. This is a semi-chisel chain. They are going to do a little bit better with dirt, but they're certainly not going to cut as fast as a full chisel chain like this. Now, if you buy any bigger saws, this is what it's going to come with. If from a homeowner perspective, if you're buying a professional saw, most of them are going to come. See the single raker. So as I go around the tip of the bar, it's always going to be the same, and very, very aggressive, hard right angle on the cutter, very sharp top plate angles. Sorry, my phone's not focusing. This is the most aggressive chain, really. And then last but not least, I have a full chisel. This is actually, if you guys haven't heard, this is a camper corner, which you're not ever going to notice the difference between this and a full chisel, but it is a safety chain. Again, you see the double raker. You guys can, if you don't see that. Yeah, so that's the main thing that you're going to want to look out for when you're buying a saw. If you want your saw to cut fast, get rid of that safety chain. Get something a little bit more aggressive. You can see I even have them on 201. I don't screw around with safety chain too much. They go in the rack.
Yeah.
But so talking about different pitches, Lucas, you could probably answer that a little bit better than I can. But
so
with
there's three numbers that you need to know on your chain. And you honestly don't even need to know what the length of the chain is, because the first number you want to worry about is the number of drivers it has. So the driver is the little piece that comes down on the bottom. Looks like a shark fin. And that driver is what fits into your sprocket on the clutch drum, and it also fits into the sprocket on your tip of your bar. So you have to worry about matching up the pitch of your chain. So the pitch is literally the distance from one rivet on the front of a chain to the front rivet on the next piece of chain, and it's divided by 2. So most of your big saws are going to run 3/8. Some of your smaller saws, like your 50cc saws, are going to run 0.325. Then obviously the smaller chain that you run on your top handle saws is going to be 3/8 low profile, which means that it's still the same distance. It just has a lower profile tooth. Now, so you've got the number of drive lengths, and then you've also got the pitch, which is that distance, or the corresponding to your clutch drum and the drum or the sprocket on the tip of your chain, or tip of your bar, I'm sorry. Then finally, the last number that you have is your gauge, and your gauge is going to be the thickness of that drive length. So it's also the thickness of the channel on your bar. So as long as you know those 3 numbers and you can match those 2 numbers, well, actually just 1, just match the pitch to your saw, you're in good shape. But hopefully that helps the people out there that understand what they use, but they don't know why it is the number that it is.
If you go to anybody who's switching to aftermarket bars, and even your stock bars, I can find one right here. You can pretty easily figure out, if you don't remember, what size chain you need. So I picked the only bar that doesn't say it. Never mind. I'm putting my foot in my mouth here.
That's okay. Some brands have the, like, Samira. I sell Samira bars and I sell Archer bars. The Samira bar will say on it the number of drive lengths. It'll say the number of drive lengths, the pitch, and the gauge right on it. But if you're using an Archer bar, the Archer bar has a code, and that code then corresponds to the 3 numbers.
You can see right there. This is a stock Echo bar. 050, 72 drive length, 325 pitch.
Yep.
I mean, that's almost makes it too easy to order the right chain. Any opinions? Skip versus full skip? That's a question, right?
I got an easy way to tell gauge. I got to remember what it is here, though.
So BZ Arbor Care wants to know, do you guys have any insight on a pixel bar? You've seen Husqvarna sell pixel bars, no idea what that means. I've seen that the pixel bar has come out. I believe it's a lower profile bar, but I could be wrong on that.
I don't know anything about the pixel bar. I know they just came out with a lightweight bar. It looks just like the discontinued Oregon light bar.
So the new lightweight Husqvarna bar that they just came out with is a Samira bar.
Oh,
it's just a different. It doesn't have the cutouts. It has one long cutout.
that's sick.
Yeah.
Half skip versus full skip. Yeah, I mean, the benefits. So this is a half skip. So you have 2 cutters, and then you have your skip. And then you have 2 cutters opposite each other, and then you have your skip. Full skip is gonna 1 cutter, skip, and then the other cutter. See, so I mean, if you have a saw, like for instance, I was running my 395 with a full skip chain. I still am now, actually, but I noticed that it just spun the chain so fast that sometimes it wouldn't grab in like oak and stuff like that. Like it would just spin. So I switched to a half skip and I had a lot more luck with that. But it's just more cutters to sharpen. The more faster it's going to cut. The less cutters, the more you're going to be able to keep your RPMs up, and the better it's going to clear sawdust. So half skip is kind of a nice blend between the two. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it cuts a little faster. Yes.
Yeah, my rule of thumb is anything over 28 inches, I'm gonna recommend going to a full skip. That's just my personal rule of thumb. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of it, if you're running a smaller saw with a bigger bar, you might want to run a skip tooth chain just because you've got less cutters in the wood, so less drag.
Yeah, and it's way less time to sharpen. Like it's literally half the time to sharpen it. So
Yeah. AC4ZU, yes. The answer is yes. That green chain is why it doesn't like to bore cut right.
All right, so back to telling what gauge your bar is. Everybody's got coins, right?
Yep.
50 gauge, 58 gauge, 63 gauge. Just what coin fits in your bar?
That's awesome. I didn't know that. Makes perfect sense. Buxton's got,
Yeah, so
Buxton's
a
got all
dime,
the
dimes are 50 gauge, a pennies are 58, and a quarters are 63. Just fit it in your bar, and that's what you got.
Nice. All right. So what other questions have we had in here that we haven't followed up on?
yeah, I think we pretty much touched on everything that came up in the comments. I've been kind of trying to keep up with that.
Yeah.
Um,
So do you guys that are on right now have any more questions for us? Anything you'd like to hear us go over? We've got maybe another 10 minutes left that we can be on.
there's one. 28-inch bar, full skip or half skip. Depends on the saw. Honestly,
Yeah.
and what kind of wood you're getting into on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely depends on the size of the saw there. If you're running if you're trying to run a 28-inch bar on an Echo 590,
Yeah,
you better run full skip on it.
super skip.
Oh,
But
it'll pull it. It just won't oil it.
yeah. Oh, my light's dying. I don't know. I mean, if you're running a 395 or a 660 with a 28-inch bar, like he says 461, lots of oak. Full skip probably, or half skip, but probably full.
Yeah, that's a feel thing there. A 461 should pull full comp in oak just fine.
How do you feel about running antique saws for fun? Newer's better.
Yeah.
You guys might agree with me on that, but
I like running an old saw from time to time. It's I'm an Olympic collector myself because that's what my dad grew up with, or what I grew up with that my dad had, and so I've gotten just a weird like to collect those things, and they're fun to break out and to use them, and they feel a lot different. They're heavier, but I've got an Olympic 480 Super that is so smooth. Man, that thing is awesome. But it weighs 20 pounds.
yeah.
Accurate climber, full skip, 25-inch bar on a 462.
It
No,
rips. No.
no full skip on a 25.
Look,
There's no reason.
hold on. Where's my? Oh, here's a 25. Bam, full skip. But I'll tell you what the reason is. There is a reason. I don't like sharpening, and full comp takes forever, dude. It takes so long to sharpen. If I could run a full skip on my 201, if they made them, I would, dude.
Nice. All right, Kev Haggard wants to know about coated pistons. What do you think about the Molly coated pistons, Gary?
Oh, I ain't used one yet. We got one sitting here. I haven't used it yet.
Yeah. We've actually got we have a Cerakote company that we work with to do our custom saws where we're actually doing powder and Cerakoting on them to customize them. And one of the things that they do is Cerakote has a cylinder slick. And that's going to be something that we're going to try in the future as well, is to slick the inside of the cylinder and the piston. See how we like that.
The problem with the Molly coated ones out right now is lots of people are Molly coating the cheaper pistons, so they're a lower quality piston. I'd like to see someone Molly coating like a Meteor piston, That'd make me a lot happier. Because if I have a choice between the molly coated ones people are selling on eBay and all these people are selling, or a Meteor piston, I'm going to run the Meteor piston because it's just a higher quality piston. There ain't no sense of running a heavier, low quality piston with poor machining because it has molly coating on it, at least in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be my viewpoint on it as well. BZ Arbor Care wants to know the cheapest DIY mod you would recommend. That's easy for me. It's a muffler mod. But
just the same question.
Yeah, honestly though, the cheapest thing that you can do to make your saw perform better, well, there's two things. Number one, keep your chain sharp.
Gives me all the power.
Number two,
Ha 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 ha.
clean.
Yeah, I mean that sounds good to me. Like that's like the main problem with a lot of guys is they just let their saws get all gummed up and then they cut like shit and excuse my language, but yeah.
Yeah.
I clean
What's your thoughts,
air compressor.
Gary?
I'd say a muffler mod and a timing advance, but like I said earlier, be careful advancing your timing. Not all of them like it. You can hurt your saw doing it too. Also, make sure you know how to tune or take it to someone that knows how to tune. Keep it in tune. An out-of-tune saw performs poorly, so make sure you're tuning your saw if it's not auto-tuned. Make sure you know how to tune your saw. Buck and Billy's got some great videos. I think Lucas has a video, don't you?
Yep.
There's a bunch of videos out there on how to tune. Learn how to do it, and learn how to do it good. Practice it, and that's going to keep it performing. Because even if you mod your muffler or you advance your timing, you're always going to have to touch your tune-up after that. So learn how to tune.
Yeah, and if you guys need a decent tack, I've got a nice one for $35 on my website. It's a real nice tack. It's
I got one.
It's a handy little tool. So
Gary, I have like 8. I just never use them
because you can't find them.
Do you ever find any issues with tuning? Like, do you find saws getting out of tune, like when it changes the weather? And then with that same question, like that's one of my questions is when you start like talking about the little cold door on the steel. You know, I've never ever used mine, and like I don't even think you need to. They recommend something ridiculous, like closing it at 50 degrees, which seems stupid.
Yeah, I've never bothered with it.
I never touch them. Yeah, I never touch them, but with weather changing your tune, yeah, definitely. If you want your saw tune to perform optimal, if it's 70 out and it drops down to like here in Wisconsin, like 0, when I tune a saw at 0, it runs fat as a pig when it gets spring out. It runs so fat it won't two-stroke in the wood. So, yeah, lots of guys from the factory, they're going to kind of come a happy medium. They're going to run a little fat in the summer. That's why everybody says my saws run so good in the winter. I hear that all the time. Well, they run so good in the winter because the temperature's leaning them out. You can make them run that good in the summer. You just got to retune them.
Yeah, it's great. Now, Tree Pirate wants to know, using bolt-on options like a bark box without getting additional performance work done. I personally think that that's a fantastic way to go. It's cheap power.
You got to tune your carb, right? If you don't have
you got to tune it once you're done.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be a huge difference in tuning, but you definitely have to tune the.
Probably about an 1/8 inch on your low and your high. Fatten them up about an 1/8 of a turn. That's about all you're going to see. You'll know right away when you put them on. Lots of saws will have a dead spot. That's because your low is too lean.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. All right, any other questions, guys? Do you guys have anything, Gary or Zach?
That was probably like my main question. The other ones I think we answered. I mean, as far as like something like a bark box goes on an auto tune saw, you just run with the 462 Steel recommends. They have like a certain recalibration process where you run it for 30 seconds on half choke, and then rev it full out for 30 seconds and it goes through all its little things. And I mean, is that all you pretty much recommend for auto tune?
You can do that. They'll figure it out too. If you just cut with them, they'll figure it out. Most of them. I've never had one that don't figure it out on its own, but you can do the reset too. Mainly, if you put something like that on and you go cut with it and you think it's running lean, or I tune a lot of saws, so I have an ear for it. If I think it's out of tune, then I'll go back and I'll do the reset then. But most of the time, even after I port them, it needs a drastic tune change. I make 5 cuts and it's got it figured out and it's in tune.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. So there's no real danger to putting bark boxes on your auto tune saws and clean out and burn up.
No, absolutely not. It'll figure it out. It's designed to compensate for. Like you were talking earlier, the weather and the altitudes. It's designed to compensate for all that and keep it running optimal. Like if you were to run it, at 500 feet and then go to 4,000 feet, you don't necessarily got to reset it. That system's going to figure that out. It's designed to figure that out. And it'll figure out all your mods the exact same way. You run it a couple cuts, usually they're bang on in tune. That's part of the reason I love the auto tune. Takes all the guesswork out of it. I ain't got to worry about shipping saws out and people not tuning them right because the auto tune takes care of it. So,
absolutely. All right. Well, I think this is a great place to end for the day. So, thanks to Gary Buxton at Buxton Work Saws. Thanks to Zach Richards out at what's the name of your company, Zach?
Zigzag Man Inc.
Zigzag Man Inc.
Yeah, I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Is that what you're asking?
No, I couldn't remember the name of your company.
So. When I operate on my own, it's Shamrock Tree Service, but otherwise it's just Zach, man. Insurance is in my name. Checks go to me.
Yeah. Nice.
DM me for right. But it's baseball season, so I'm not going any further than an hour.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you joining us. We'll have to do this again sometime in the near future.
Yeah, sweet, dude.
All right. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us on the live stream.
Any questions? Feel free to message us.
Absolutely, yeah. If you guys have any questions at all, or if there was something that we talked about that you want to follow up on, just hit us up on a DM. So we'll talk at you guys later.
Later.
All right, see you.
Bye.